Hello, everyone. Thank you for joining our learning series, Navigating New Roads. Today's webinar program will be presented by Withum's Dale Tuttle and Brad Caruso to discuss adapting business process to improve efficiency and effectiveness. Before we begin, I have a few housekeeping notes. Materials for today's presentation can be found in the toolbar located on the right hand of your screen. At the bottom of the toolbar, you will see a questions box. All questions pertaining to the webinar content should be asked there. We will do our best to address them. Be sure to answer all polling questions to ensure that you receive CPE credits for today's session. Once the webinar is over, there will be a pop-up asking you to complete a survey of today's webinar. Please take a moment to complete it. It is our way of being able to provide you with the best and most relevant programs possible. And finally, to raise the stakes a bit, at the end of each of the sessions within our Navigating New Roads series, we will have a trivia question for you to answer. The attendee who answers the most trivia questions correctly at the end of the series will receive a special prize from our Withum team. With that, I am going to turn it over to Brad.
Thanks, Ashley. Good afternoon, everybody. Thanks for being with us today. Good morning to anyone that's not from the East Coast, because I imagine it's 9 a.m. in California and other places. So welcome to the webinar today. As Ashley said, this is part of our Navigating New Roads series, and the content we've been putting out to our clients and trying to help with education is around how do you transition amid the COVID-19 pandemic, as well as going forward into being more virtual, more automated with your processes, and really changing what we've been doing for the past 30 years. Especially in the not-for-profit industry. I've been working with not-for-profits for about 12 years now. What I've noticed is obviously there's a lot of area that we can automate. A lot of organizations are switching to electronic tools. Some organizations are moving away from a physical office. And so there's a lot of challenges and complications to make that happen. And what Dale and I plan on doing today is giving you some tools and abilities to make changes and how you should be thinking about making changes internally and how you should be adapting your business processes to put you in the best position you can be put in. So a little bit about me. Some of you know me, some of you don't. I'm the host of Withum Civic Warriors. If you need a good podcast in this pandemic, just go to Apple or Spotify and look up Civic Warriors. We interview not-for-profit organizations and talk about the challenges that they're facing, as well as some innovations that they're doing. And we get some very good insight and good conversation about what some other not-for-profit folks are doing in the industry. Also, I'm a volunteer firefighter and the dad of 2 kids and a golden retriever. So it's a good time right now being home. The dog loves it, the kids love it, and we're all struggling to work hard.
Now, Brad, don't forget your fire safety briefing.
That's what I was going to do. Yeah, okay. I start every presentation with a fire safety briefing. So for all of you that like to eat bacon and cook bacon in a pan in the morning and have grease, just know that you should not pour water onto a hot grease or onto a hot grease fire. As you know, if you do that, it creates a chemical reaction and you'll notice a lot of steam. Sometimes it will create a larger fire, it will spatter, it will burn you, and it will cause a big problem. One quick fix to that, and this is a scientific fix, but maybe not one that you'd read in a textbook, is if you pour a little soap into the pan, soap actually adheres to the oil, and you will get no smoke, and it'll just completely alleviate your problem. So process called saponification. So soap is a very good remedy for hot grease fires. Dale, on to you.
Right then. I don't think I have a safety briefing per se. I know I think a few people on the line have been working with Brad for 3 years now. It's been 3 years now, Brad, since we joined Withum. It's been an awesome 3 years. And thanks for letting me pontificate with you today. So been around a little while doing this sort of stuff. I think what we've been focusing on a lot lately, especially in the last couple of months, is exactly what we're talking about today, which is trying to adapt to the situations that we find ourselves. And I think we have some fairly good advice. A little bit more about me. I used to be a professor. I used to teach at Virginia Tech. That was the last place I was at. And that, of course, causes a fair amount of consternation, not only with the parents that we have with kids currently at Tech and the alumnus, right? No, alumni. And but I have a kid at UVA and one at Maryland, which, they're not that much rivals, but UVA and Virginia Tech, they don't all get along. and I have to speed down to UVA right after we get done with our webinar today to clear up my daughter's dorm. So that's the mission for today.
Good stuff.
So what can we expect today, Brad?
So what Dale and I are going to talk about are the common business disruptions and kind of what to do about them. So what are we seeing? We put some notes in here and some discussion on what our clients are asking us questions every day. We're going to talk about what those questions are, what we're seeing. We're going to talk about how can you plan to deal with these disruptions? What steps you can take to implement and adapt to them? And really, is this an opportunity for us? Many of us talk about in the industry that we can do things better, and as much as we have so much going on right now, now's the time to think about it, because many of us are making temporary changes and many of us are making permanent changes. For example, some people may go through this, some clients and organizations and not-for-profits out there may say, we're not going to go back to our office because we can do this. We don't need our office, and it's actually cheaper and more efficient and more effective from an internal control perspective for us not to do it. And so that's essentially what we're going to cover. And Dale's going to talk a lot more about what tools are out there and how he's been helping our clients and contacts with making that happen, including Withum. And I think the real value in working with Dale is he's helped Withum so much implement our technology, which has helped both myself as an auditor and a financial statement person just understand the IT and the implications back there. So he's going to share his experience and knowledge on that, which is going to be, we feel very beneficial to many of you. So what are we seeing out there? Basically almost everyone underestimated, the business and technical impacts of working remotely. What do I mean by that? Well, I have 2 young kids at home. I can tell you that I used to drive to the office. I used to work from 8 to whenever, and I used to come home and see my family, and we would spend our time together. Now your kids who are younger see you every day, and they're there in front of you. And in addition to that, working remotely has its challenges, right? Withum has 1,200 employees. We work with many different younger team members, and we're trying to manage them remotely. Some of them don't have the structure of being in an office or the structure of working for a company, and so there's implementing a technology only goes so far. You need to have a lot of strategy behind it to make sure that it's successful. Simple business processes like dealing with payments and receipts. I have many clients calling me daily about implementing a payment system. Withum has an outsourced accounting group which they utilize a program called Bill.com, and that has been a very efficient solution for many of our both outsourced clients as well as some of our audit clients in implementing. You can make some quick ad hoc decisions. Some of us are doing that. We're making a lot of things on the fly, but you really have to take a step back and understand the strategy of what you're trying to accomplish. If you're trying to implement a payment tool like a Bill.com, it's not as simple as just buying the tool. There's a lot of strategy that goes around the before and after, including internal control considerations, including how are we going to make this happen, including IT access control considerations, and all of that needs to be considered while you're going through it. And as an auditor, we talk about documenting things. Write it down in a memo. You need to be comfortable with your process before and after you implement a new technology, and you need to make sure there's no holes. Yesterday we would have our clients sign an invoice. They would send it to accounting. Accounting would process it. We would pay it. 2 people would sign the check. Well, now we're noticing that people aren't in their office. So how do you transfer that piece of paper? How do you get 3 people that are in different locations to sign the check? It's a logistical challenge as well as a technological challenge that people are overcoming.
And I think it's worth saying, Brad, that when you adapt whatever iteration you're on, expect to keep, changing and adapting, because you may not get it right the first time. Or things change. I think that's the other component here is you'll make decisions based on the information that you have, and that can change. And I think also what we're seeing, I think a corollary to this stuff is we're not going to just be cleanly out of this. It's going to get better. It might take a dive for a while. So you need to be ready to deal with disruption for perhaps longer. I know longer than I thought when this started. And we're 2 months in where I am down in the DC metro area. So it's probably going to be a while before we're approaching a normal, but I think I know it's an overused term, but expect a new normal when we finally are on the other side.
Yeah, I originally predicted June 1st is when the world will go back to normal, and I may or may not be revising my predictions right now. I think we may open society back up, but what I don't know is what happens when we do. I think there's going to be a lot of psychology that a lot of us can't predict at this point. And so, as Dale said, it's an adapt and overcome concept. It's not a, hey, I bought this tool and it's going to work, and I don't have any further. You may adopt the technology and then realize it's not going to work. And Dale, you were going to probably comment on that.
Well, there'll be iteration and change, and I think people are actually getting better at it. People are amazing at how well they adapt over time. After that initial shock, people get really good at it. So, and it's always a journey. And so I'm pretty sure that even when you adopt new technology, there'll be some break-in, some adoption issues, but overall, this could improve business operations too, because you're focusing on making things better.
Exactly. So, next slide, what questions are we hearing from our clients? Much of what I'm telling you, but I think the most common things in the not-for-profit community, many of you have dual signing check authority, where a board member and the executives will sign the check over certain dollar amounts. And really the number one question I'm getting right now is, hey, my board chair can't get to our office to sign checks, and we have this check signing policy. What can we do? And I'll tell you that, the what you do about that is you meet as an organization, you discuss it, you come up with a resolution, and you move forward, most likely changing what you have always done. Is there a rule in a textbook that tells you have to have 2 signers on a bank account? No. Not-for-profits are governed by their board, and their board ultimately can approve policies. And I think there's a lot of room right now to make changes, very justifiable changes to make a better process. Like I said, I'm unable to sign documents because my letterhead I can't access because it's in paper, or the documents are in a file cabinet in my office and I'm not allowed to go there. These are all real challenges that many of us, even us as Withum, are facing a little bit, in that we're not able to do everything the same way we used to. Some of our clients, I'll tell you how I'm disrupted in what I used to do. Some of our clients want a paper copy of their tax return or of their audit report because the government funding source of the IRS or their board members or someone wants that paper copy. And right now, that's the challenge. Having someone in an office and printing something is not easy. And so we do provide everything electronically, and that works. But there has to be communication with your stakeholders that that's acceptable, and that we are going to change because we have to. And I think that's the key. We're working remotely, and we need to go 100% virtual, given we cannot use our office. Is there a technology solution? And I'll tell you, it's not only a technology solution with a parentheses S in there. There's multiple tools that have to be implemented. It's also, how do we change philosophy? How do we change behavior of employees? And how do we do that in a tactful way that our employees are not going to get disincentivized or not like working for us anymore? And I can tell you that it's all about communication, and it's all about being very, very direct and very honest about what you're trying to achieve. And really, at the end of the day, if you think about customer behavior with buying something, if you were to buy something, there has to be a need. And if you present a case to your employees and to those in the process that this is going to make your life better, and here's why, I guarantee you'll get a better answer than if you said, adopt this now or you're fired. And there's tactful ways of doing that. And I'll be honest, it's a very, right now it's a difficult time. So none of this is easy, but you can get through it. And then once again, many clients are using desktop applications like a QuickBooks desktop, and obviously that's becoming harder and harder to use. Does it make sense to switch to an online platform? And what I'll say about that is generally, cloud-based tools do allow for more integration with other tools. Cloud-based tools like a QuickBooks Online versus a QuickBooks Desktop does afford you the opportunity of working in multiple locations without interruption. And it is, there are considerations of why one is better than the other, and it's an organizational decision. It's not one where we say we recommend you do this. It's a, well, let's look at the features of both and make sure that it will still meet your needs.
Yeah, and then I think as we start talking about this stuff, though, Brad, it's like, let's say you pick one of these technologies. You need to make your selection based on what works for your organization, your IT backbone, maybe other tools that you're using. So you make an informed decision, but whatever your decision is going to be, there'll be adoption issues and integration issues. But I think we are definitely of the mind of moving folks to the cloud. That's what we do, and I actually believe in it too. It offers some tremendous advantages.
100%. So just a quick example, like I said, and you know, daycare centers. I have several daycare clients in the not-for-profit community. You know, the before, if you flip one slide back to the before, you know, our daycare center does have the video camera, so I can actually go in and watch. Oh, too far. I can watch, you know, during the day, and I don't practice this every day watching and monitoring my kids, but every once in a while I'll poke in there and just see kind of like, you know, what activities they're doing, because obviously I want to give a good example to my kids, and our daycare center does a fantastic job of engaging the kids and keeping them. And obviously before, my process was this: I woke up in the morning, fed my kids breakfast, we drove them to school, dropped them off, had a good day, I go to work, I come back at 3 or 4 o'clock, I pick them up, I go home, we have dinner, everybody's happy. Now what happens what happens to that daycare center? Well, what happens is, and our daycare center did a phenomenal job of adapting, and the teachers of the world, if anyone's a teacher on the phone, just, you know, thank you for what you're doing, because, you know, the kids really need you now more than ever. And in this changing time, the school said, you know what we're going to do? You know, we're not going to have an all-day activity, because that's very difficult. You know, a kid that's my son there, Chase, with his Spider-Man uniform on there, he doesn't have an attention span of 8 hours of watching a computer screen like some of us do. You know, Dale and I are sitting in front of the computer for 10, 12, 14 hours a day. You know, a 4-year-old child can't sit in front of a computer for more than 20 minutes, 30 minutes without going.
Pretty sure I could when I was a kid, but I'm maybe not a computer, but a TV.
And so, you know, he goes bananas. And you know, so what they did, they implemented a virtual learning platform. They utilize Zoom. They did a virtual learning platform. They hold 20 to 30 minute a day sessions for. I have a 2-year-old and a 4-year-old, so they split them up at different times, right? So they're very mindful that many people have 2 kids in the school at the same time, so you can't hold them at the same time. And we wake up at 9 o'clock. We log on to the computer. We have it hooked up to the TV with a HDMI cable. The teacher presents on the TV, and they do activities. And me and my wife do those activities with our kids from 9 to 10, and they split them up half hour, half hour. And so that is the new normal. So when we use that term and overuse it, that is the new normal. The new normal is that you have to change your process. And I can tell you that I value what our daycare center did. I highly value that they pivoted and that they are trying to work with us. And listen, do I want them to open back up? Yes, every day. But I understand that we're going to practice social distancing and follow government orders as well as those of our healthcare professionals. And we're going to adapt the way they are. And your constituents are going to appreciate when you work with them. And you're not going to have the same solution. You're not going to deliver your services the same way, but you will change the way you've delivered your services. And there's a technology backbone, as Dale mentioned, to make that happen. And there's also, a way of communicating it. And our school has been very good about sending us emails on a daily basis. Hey, parents, this is what's going on. This is why we're doing what we're doing. This is how we're doing it. And, feel free to provide us feedback because we're all working in this together. And those communications, coupled with the computer, coupled with the Zoom technology, coupled with the online learning platforms they're using, and they've been sending out PDF practice aids that we can print out at home and use. It's been going a long way. And I think every not-for-profit can learn from that because, there's a lot of things outside of just, hey, buy this tool and use it. You have to adapt to the process and what your customers and clients and constituents you're serving, how they can receive and utilize that information. So what has Withum done? Some of the challenges we faced, our clients and team members couldn't sign documents. What do? We implemented DocuSign so that our clients can sign engagement letters and management representation letters and all those fun things that we make you sign on the dotted line for to get comfortable with an audit. We implemented DocuSign, very simple tool, but Dale will probably tell you there was some back-end things we had to work through to be able to make that happen seamlessly. We do have 1,200 employees, so it's it's not as easy as buying it and saying, hey, start using it tomorrow, right, Dale?
Yeah, and the trick there too is, of course, integrating that into a workflow that for approvals and that sort of stuff. So these tools generally all do that. So, but that's simple. Electronic signatures are a simple way to greatly streamline and save yourself some heartache in this time.
Yep. our clients, in certain cases right now, we're doing audits remotely. I have 6 audits going on right now simultaneously that we started less than a month ago. So we are full steam ahead when our clients want us to be full steam ahead. And some of our clients don't have access to a scanner or can't necessarily access all of those documents from where they are. And we have to find innovative solutions. I have one client right now that they made copies, they put those copies in a box, and we safely and securely picked them up with, still practicing social distancing and not encountering them. And we have the technology in our home offices, and our staff scanned in the documents, and it was as if we were in the client's office. There's obviously audit considerations in that, but I'm not going to get into that. The office is seldomly used. We have to practice social distancing. COVID-19 is going on. Over the past couple of years, we've introduced some technologies like Microsoft Teams, Withum Experience, which is an online portal where our clients look at the data that we request, and they upload everything to it. We've implemented Box as a file transfer system, and we have a tool, Withum AI, which patches into clients' general ledger systems and pulls out data from the general ledger. So all of these were cloud-based tools that we've implemented over the past year, right? So it took time. This isn't something, we didn't just wake up tomorrow and say, okay, Withum employees, we've implemented all these technologies, have at it.
And that's the key. It was planned, phased in. It worked with our IT strategy, and then you do it in a structured way. And also you got to worry about cost. You can't do everything all at once.
No. We had QuickBooks Desktop, and we were unable to access it. We implemented Withum Cloud, where we basically put that application on the cloud. That's something I'm less versed in. Dale is more versed in, but that was a solution to the challenge. And we had a few others. So what does this tell you? What are some of the thought-provoking questions? How do I change and maintain my core values as a nonprofit? Some of you may realize that we can't go virtual with what we do, and that's okay. But that doesn't mean that the delivery of the service is the only thing you do. You have to look at this at stage approaches, as Dale said. Our face-to-face interaction is something we like that is a necessity, or is it something we must do? Is it a necessity? What internal controls are essential? Can we make temporary changes? Many of you are adopting new technologies and changing your process. Well, there's that old concept called internal controls that us as auditors in the nonprofit world have to look at. Many of you have reports issued in accordance with government auditing standards, and because of that, we have to audit your internal controls. And if you implement something but don't have the same level of control over the environment, we're going to have to comment on that. So you want to be very buttoned up. Talk with your team, your auditor, and your internal team to make sure that what you're implementing actually does still pass muster with respect to keeping control over the processes.
And I think that'll come into focus a little bit here in a few minutes when we talk about some of these process considerations that we're recommending, I should say.
And how do I securely deliver IT to remote users? I think that's one of the main topics Dale is going to go into a little bit. So, but that's a thought, right? You got to make sure you can deliver those solutions no matter where the people are. And really, where do I start? That's it.
Yeah. Oh, we have a poll. So, Brad, do you have the poll in front of you to read off the questions?
Ashley does.
Ashley does. Awesome.
So poll number 1 to get your CPE credit. Which business process has been most disrupted for you? Accounts receivable and collections, accounts payable and payments, payroll, capital asset management, or IT and data management? My guess is it's going to be accounts receivable and collections.
We should play music when we do these polls.
Sing it.
Like the Jeopardy thingy.
Yeah.
Boop, boop,
Boop, boop, boop.
boop, 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 boop.
Is that it? Is that time up? Yeah, ring.
All right. Where are we at on this?
We got 70% votes, so get in those votes. Make sure you can get your CPE credit.
We'll give you 5 more seconds. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Okay, close the poll. Let's see what you got. So, yep, 30% said AR and collections, and 47% of you said accounts receivable and payments. Rightfully so. Nobody said capital asset management, because I'm sure capital asset management is the one of the last issues right now from a process perspective. And And some of you said IT and data management, which we've also heard. But AP has definitely been the biggest one in the not-for-profit community from a perspective of the internal controls that were always in place. So just real quickly, just go through an example of accounts payable, how accounts payable has been disrupted to give you a frame of reference. So historically, you had a procurement process. You made a contract with the vendor. You had internal controls to do that procurement. You mailed signed copy out from you, executed, they signed it, mailed it back. A lot of times that was a paper document. It transferred through the USPS or another medium on the mail service. Mail arrives at the front desk and it's provided to the party. Invoices are approved, matched, and sent to accounting. The accounting department enters the invoice in the system. That invoice is ultimately approved, and a check is signed by the executive director or another responsible party check signer. If it's over a certain dollar amount, board member adds a second signature. That check is mailed to a vendor, and then all documents are stapled together and put in the file cabinet. Right? Sound familiar to you? Because I would say that's what probably 80 to 90% of my clients have done for the last I can't say 30 years because I've been practicing for 14, but
well, you would think that would have changed much, or a lot. And I guess it has changed. The rate of change is fairly high, but it's still, that's how pretty much every business still does it, even in the largest companies. You may see some pockets of people doing things more modern, but you'll still see this exact process pretty much everywhere.
You bet. So, what are the questions you should ask yourself, and as you're going through this process, like, if you're trying to automate the AP process, you need to brainstorm the what and the why before you even think about what the technology solution is, because the technology solution is a tool in the toolkit and it supplements the business process. But the technology, generally speaking, you shouldn't buy the technology and then figure it out. Although, sometimes that does work. A big part of it is the upfront planning, and that how do I want to map out this process. I want to figure out this process. So what am I thinking about? Well, what if my constituents and members don't have a scanner? I need to help them with that because I want to make sure that we're as efficient with our vendors as well. Where does all the mail go? Many of us don't have a receptionist that can collate and send out the mail. So where does it go? Do I need to create an electronic box where mail can go? Can these approvals happen for invoices electronically? Does it have to be someone signing a piece of paper? I mean, there's no rule out there that says you have to, although I will say there are some government funding sources that mandate certain things. So a government funding source may mandate a paper timesheet. A government funding source may mandate X, Y, and Z. Obviously, when we're saying, you need to consider all those, you as an organization know your rules better than anybody. You need to consider that. And if a government limits you, call them up. Ask them if there's a way to change it. Ask them if there's a way to do it. And generally the answer is no, because they're a government and or they may not be responding. But it's part of the process of uncovering how to change. How do I access my local accounting system from where I am? Can I remote in? Is that safe? Is that secure? Is there a better way? Is my speed going to be impacted? How do I avoid shortcuts due to lack of staffing and reduction of workforce? I've heard from a few clients lately that, hey, these individuals don't want to go in our office, and that's the only place they can go to do their job. Yeah. So now I have to go in and do their job, otherwise it's not going to happen. Well, what's that doing? Well, it's circumventing the internal controls, because now you have one person doing everything. And as much as that, yes, that may be the only thing you can do right now, you want to avoid that as much as you can to make sure you have a solid process. And can I store all this data that I'm capturing electronically? Can I store it in an organized way and in a way that's secure and that the right people can access it? Access rights with technology is a big thing.
Yeah, and the technology solutions that people pick might have certain differences in how they apply permissioning and that sort of stuff. So you have to marry up how the technology or the solution that you've picked, how it works with your controls.
Yep.
Oh boy.
So what do I do about it? Oh. This is that's one of those last minute things you slip in and not let Dale know about. So I found a weird picture when I Googled his name, and that's the picture I found under Google Images. So if you Google Dale Tuttle, that's what you get.
Is that what you get still?
That's what you it's a professional picture. So Dale's going to show you some tips and tricks, and he's gonna really talk through the nuts and bolts. I wanted to give you a little bit of background from the not-for-profit side of what we're seeing, and Dale's going to approach this from the process automation and the technology end. So poll number 2, let's get your CPE in. What do we got, Ashley? Is anyone on this call using a process automation tool? Yes or no? Dale, what's a process automation tool?
Well, I don't know if we should let it out of the bag, but
Let's not let it out of the bag. Let's see interpretation.
But well, is anybody using a tool that automates some of these processes that we're talking about? A lot of people actually have them, and some people have them and aren't using them. So this kind of gives us a little bit of context for our discussion going forward.
All right, we have 67% of you who have submitted a vote. Gonna give it another few seconds.
Yep.
And we're gonna close it out.
So when you close out the poll result, it messes up my. Anyway, what do we got?
36% say yes, 64% say no.
Wow, okay, that's even higher than I thought people would have it. So that's interesting. Let's see if I can go back to presentation mode. There it goes. All right, so let's talk a little bit about what do we mean by these tools. An automation tool, we used to just call these things business process management tools. Now we call them process automation tools. Of course, they come in with all types of different capabilities, but just some focus on a machine doing a lot of the work for you. Using the departure point of Brad's, what happens with your invoices and your accounts payable solutions. What you can do is you can have machines, at least even simply, a very simple solution would be once you get the document into electronic form, various people need to review and maybe comment and maybe also approve or disapprove some of these invoices. So a tool would actually run that process for you. It would email me, for instance. This is, a lot of them operate the same way. It would email and say, "Hey, you have some items in your workflow today. Here they are," and I'd have to make decisions. And it's a web-based tool usually. It could be a client too, a little tool that's working on your computer, or it could be browser-based. And then whatever decision that you would have to make in that process, as in your role, you would make it. And let's say I say yes, maybe you put some comments on it, then it would move it along in the process and maybe send it over to Brad for him to have a peek. Very simple example, but tying it back to what Brad was talking about earlier. So that's simple business process automation, and there's a lot of tools out there to do it. We're going to talk about some of the tools. There's lots of them out there, but we work with a subset of those. But there's a new area, and that is called, just not to confuse the world, but you may have seen these out there. People are calling them robotic process automation tools, RPA, and they also call it IPA, intelligent process automation, except IPA is a beer, so I don't like using the IPA term myself, but we have folks at the office that like to do that. But an RPA tool.
IPA stands for India Pale Ale. I never knew that.
I know.
Never knew it.
And so, intelligent process automation has a beer connotation. So I say RPA, which I love the idea of a robot doing something anyway. So look, what are the robotic tools doing? Think of, for anybody that's, at least certainly my age, which I'm fairly old, but we used to write Excel macros. Now what these tools will do is watch a human perform an activity and then mimic the human for future activity. So if you are, for instance, connecting to another system, getting a report, taking files from that system and copying and pasting them to another system, by the way, that's still a very normal part of people's day, especially in the medical or not-for-profits, probably not as much, but I guess maybe, where people are working in one system, they need data moved from one system to the other, and it's always, I get this report and put the data over here. If that sounds like you, there are tools that can do that for you. It would watch the human do it, and then subsequently you would hit go, and it would do that for you maybe the next month or the next time, maybe a batch of invoices showed up or something like that. These
Yeah,
tools
and we
simply are macros on steroids.
Yeah, and that's exactly what I was gonna say. If anyone knows Excel and knows what a macro is, it's a recording of what you did. And also in the not-for-profit world, we see that so often in the the development advancement world when it comes to fundraising. A lot of the data is in System A. It's not on a gap basis. It's on a random, it's on a fundraising basis, which is either based on a campaign or based on a cash collection or whatever it might be. And that information has to be translated from a completeness perspective into the accounting records. And I see all over the board duplication of effort in that area the most. And what Dale's talking about is creating a system so that that effort duplication can be reduced by use of robotic process automation.
And there are some nuances in there, but some of these tools actually can then deal with exceptions on their own because they have artificial intelligence baked into them. But that's pushing the envelope, and I don't even necessarily think most people need that level of sophistication. But what are the processes that are being automated now? On the financial side, I would say financial processes are the most popular thing right now that we're personally seeing in the vendors that we work with. I'm pretty sure those are the most common ones. After that, it's probably HR processes, but IT processes, pretty much any process that people need to approve or review or do something, especially with a document. These things are ripe to be automated. And remember, you don't have to automate the whole thing. You might just be automating part of it. You still have human intervention in most of these processes. The idea is to make sure that you identify what the process looks like and the intervention points are clearly defined. But these lists, I think we're providing the deck. This is actually a really good list of processes that people are automating as we speak. So here's some of the tools that we're working with. There are a lot more out there. In fact, I think we have a subsequent slide, but I'll tell you about the ones that we work with because a lot of people will recognize 2 or 3 of these. A newer one that we're working with is called WebCon. It is a traditional business process automation tool. It does not purport to be this artificial intelligence tool. It is a simple, okay, here comes a document. It needs to go to Dale. It needs to go to Brad. It creates web forms. It's really good at creating web forms, and it's pretty cost effective too. WebCon, it's a great tool. Actually, for the not-for-profit community, WebCon makes a lot of sense because it's cheaper than a lot of the other ones, and it's very straightforward. And it has something else going for it. It's called low code. You may hear low code and no code solutions. I hate when people say no code. Everything takes a little bit of code. But WebCon is essentially a drag and drop tool that you can create process automation without being a developer. We are using it at some big clients right now. It's working as advertised, and we really do like it. Nintex is a well-known player in business process automation and now robotic process automation. We work with them very closely. I'll talk to you about a specific tool they have that can make your lives a lot easier. UiPath, boy, the other people really hate me saying this, but UiPath is probably the most well-known robotic process automation or IPA tool on the market today. They spend a lot on marketing. It's more of a high-end tool, but it really works. It's very sophisticated and more of an enterprise class. Definitely a larger not-for-profit may find this more appealing because it is a bigger hammer to hit some of those tools with. Off to the right, I have what people always forget about. If you have Office 365 and you have the right subscription plan, you probably have business process automation tools as part of your plan. So you have things like Power Automate. Used to be called Flow. People might remember that. Those of you who have Office 365. They have a suite of tools built in Office 365 to automate processes. So in fact, if you're an Office 365 user and you're interested in doing some work around automating some of these processes we've been talking about, and you look to your Office 365 tools first because you may already have the tools required to automate some of your processes. A very important consideration because in good conscience, neither Brad nor I could recommend you go out and buy another tool if you already have the capability as part of your IT suite. Here's a couple more, Brad. I think you work with a bunch of these, right?
Yeah, so on the financial reporting end, and this is what you hear commonly, and I think the reason Dale and I kind of pulled this together was I think there's a lot of things like as Dale said with Office 365. We think we need to buy one of these customized off-the-shelf solutions, and at the end of the day, that's not always the case, and there are a lot of unique solutions that aren't your off-the-shelf ones. Although some of these off-the-shelf ones do serve a very specific need and purpose, and we do recommend them in certain cases. I don't have a blanket recommendation that says you should do this or you should do that. However, if someone asks my opinion, I will say, well, this works well with this client, that works well with that client, and it may work well for you. But there's no one tool that works the same for everybody, especially when you have processes around the tool. So, things like Salesforce with your CRM and your donor management, we see people use. We see a lot of people customizing that, and so there may be some price tags associated with using a tool like that, but Concur and Expensify are travel reimbursement and expense reimbursement type softwares that a lot of clients use and can automate that. Withum itself uses a program called Chrome River, which we take a picture of a receipt, it auto codes it. So when you talk about coding things and that process memory, the system will code it for us, and I just, as the submitter, have to just review it. So the computer takes the first pass, not me. And I can tell you that those types of tools have saved us a lot of time internally at Withum.
You got to pick the one that you need a structured approach to figuring out which tools you should use. But there's a lot of them out there, and some of them are purpose-built for certain tasks, if you will.
Yep, agreed. Poll number 3.
Poll 3. What do we got?
Have you documented your key business processes? And when we say documented, we mean in writing. So, having a memo. Some of our clients, like for example, if you're a federally funded agency, you're required to have a formally documented procurement policy that meets the requirements of the Uniform Guidance Section 200.317 to 326. And that's the section that says, here is what must be in your procurement policy. It must be in writing. So obviously, I'm telling you that for 2 reasons. One, we highly recommend having written, documented policies for your accounting and your processes and your controls, so that if an employee leaves, all that information is not vested with them. And also, it's a good way that many stakeholders in the organization can know what to do. So yes, no, or I have no idea what you mean. I don't know what this guy's talking about documenting things. He sounds like an auditor.
Yeah.
All right, we're going to close it out in just another 2 seconds, and I'm clicking close.
All right, what's it look like?
Yes. Good job, everybody. Now let's
get ready to 100%?
83% said yes. I like it. They must be clients I work with.
This webinar is over. All right, that's a good amount. That must be, actually, you must be happy, Brad. You're going to start the weekend out, feeling good.
That makes me happy. I like hearing that.
Well, look, I tell you, this is, I think, really important, not only from an audit perspective. Obviously, it helps for an audit, but to deal with your business operations now, this is more important than ever. So slightly different. I'm advocating it for a different reason than Brad, perhaps. I'm doing it just because you need to understand how your processes have been disrupted in order to, I'm not going to say fix, I'll say adapt them, and make sure you're adapting them in a way that makes sense for the current realities. So I highly advocate people doing this. There are tools that you can do to do it. Now, we have a lot of people. In fact, I myself used to do them in Visio back in the day. Remember Visio, Brad?
I do.
It was a great tool.
Yeah.
But now they have even better tools. And the one that we highly recommend, and there are others on the market, but this is one I have direct experience with, and it works really well. It's called ProMap, and it's made by Nintex. But what it does, actually, you can see it on the right-hand side there. It will define your process, who's doing what and when they're doing it. and it defines a very granularly, this is how things are working, or guess what? This is how they're supposed to work, and this is how they're not working. One of the best things it does, though, you can iterate it. And if you can iterate it, you can start with, you can start two ways. You can either start out the way it was working before all this stuff started happening, or you can start with how it's working right now. But here's a great reason to do it, just to start at some point. Let's say I have my first iteration of a post-COVID process, maybe my AP process. This is how we're dealing with it right now, based on what we know and the tools that we have. You may be able to see what type of improvements you can make to the process, which is fairly important. The second thing is, though, is to be ready for it to change. It's going to change when things start to free up and open up a little bit. It may impose a little bit of change. These tools let you iterate through. So you go, okay, we're at version 1.5 now, but guess what? You may have to revert to 1.4 if we have to partially close again. So you see the give and take that's going to happen on how these processes work. The important thing, though, is if you have a map, not only does it help you make it more efficient, you can then use that, though, to automate if you pick a tool. So this is the precursor, or a necessary step, really, a foundational step to automate the process. So if you're interested in automating your AP process to some degree, you need to start out with a map. And that could be an HR process you want to automate. Whatever the process is, highly recommend you start out with a map. And that's your plan. And it has to have different versions because, as we know, things are changing pretty quickly. Oh, geez, we have another poll already? What's the fourth poll, Brad?
How do you currently access applications and tools when working remotely? We are all cloud-based.
Kind of a change up there, but this will make sense. So, because we only have about 7 or 8 minutes left, what we're trying to do in this poll is figure out, okay, let's say, a lot of people said they had a tool, but regardless of your IT tool, if it's an automation tool, whatever it is, maybe it's your finance system, whatever that tool may be, how are you accessing it as a remote worker? And that's actually, it's important because not only from process automation, but just core backbone IT services. How are you getting your stuff as a remote user?
All right, we're just going to give it 2 more seconds. Get in your votes for your CPE credit. And I'm going to close it out.
Okay.
What do we got?
60% use remote desktop, 29% are all cloud-based, 0% don't know, and 12% of other.
That's a pretty good percentage of people who are using something. That's good, but notice that I think RDP was the most popular, right?
Yep. 60%.
Yeah, so this is an important thing. So RDP is a legacy way of getting your IT tools. And so for those of you who aren't familiar, just a brief description. So what a lot of people are doing is there may be a desktop or some other type of server back on premises or hosted somewhere. And what you're doing is you're opening up what's called an RDP session, or remote desktop protocol session. And you're essentially opening up that machine on your remote machine, and just you have a window to it. And we call that also now desktop virtualization. It can be, in fact, I have clients right now who are literally RDPing, as we call it, into their desktop machine on premises because it will have legacy applications. Almost always that's a finance tool. That's 90% of the time, that's the tool that they're using. But it can be anything, right? And you're using that, you're essentially pretending that you're at the office and getting that desktop experience. But there are lots of new ways to do that, and RDP is not a great way to do it. sucks up a lot of bandwidth. Most people are using it on a one-to-one basis, which means my desktop at work, I'm RDPing in that, and I'm the only one using that resource. And then you're maybe using other resources on the network, so it tends to bog down performance-wise. So, but there are new ways to do these things. There are now cloud-based ways of doing this stuff, and they're cheaper, more secure, and actually can be a core part of your IT modernization footprint. And by the way, it includes the tools that it can include the tools that we've been talking about already, like these mapping tools, automation tool. You can deliver those either directly through the web, or you can still control it through a virtual desktop situation or scenario where people see exactly what you want them to see. So a lot of organizations, and I know not-for-profits are the same way, they want to control what happens to the end user. They want them to see these 5 tools. They want their storage to be in this location. And if you want to control that experience, a virtual desktop is the way to go, because it gives you control, and it also allows you to deliver this client server, really a legacy application type of experience in a secure, controlled way to your end users. And the tool that we use the most, almost everyone's familiar with Citrix. Citrix really started a lot of this back in the day. But now Microsoft has caught up, and they're doing it via the web. They're via the internet, I should say. And you have a cloud-based tool that delivers the virtual desktop to you without the need to RDP. And that saves your IT resources. It makes it simpler and more efficient and cost-effective to do it this way. So we have a lot of customers who have realized, because of the COVID situation, that whatever their IT plans were, they weren't ready to have everybody remote at the same time. It might have been maybe a third of your people, or some sort of subset of your people were remote desktoping into their environment, and that was okay. But now everybody's doing it. I'm working with a law firm right now that they have 50 people now, I think a little bit more than 50. And it was okay when 10 people were RDPing into their desktops, but now everybody's doing it, and it's breaking down. And so they are considering the approach that we're talking about is they do need to provide a controlled experience to their end users. Finance needs one experience. Their attorneys need another set of tools for them. And so, but you can create these experiences for different pools of users. They call them pools of user pools. And these different pools can be supported on it's called essentially a multi-connection approach, which means that 10 or more people could be using the same virtual machine in the cloud without everyone having to go into their desktop at work and use the tools that are on that desktop. By the way, if you're doing it that way, RDPing into a desktop for your remote users, what's happened to a couple of our clients that are in Manhattan, well, they don't live in Manhattan, and that's COVID central. And it required people to go in and bounce these machines because they were getting bogged down, and they needed to have a human come in and actually turn them on and off. So expose their workers and their IT people to an elevated level of risk, so to go into the office and actually take care of these things. There are ways to not do that, and it's actually pretty important because you're not supposed to be traveling right now in some of these places. We're just starting to open up. And again, that's really not the most secure way of letting your remote users in. So I think as we made some of these decisions, some of my clients anyway, pardon me, they made decisions based on what they could do, and they were rushed. Now, as we open up and kind of starting to reflect back on how we did things, this is something I would recommend you go back and look. How am I delivering my IT services to my remote users? Don't want to spend too much time on how this thing works. It's cloud-based. The big takeaway though, if you're using Office 365, and depending on your plan, you may already have this capability. It has to be set up, don't get me wrong, but you might already be licensed to use Windows Virtual Desktop. Again, it needs to be configured and it will cost money to operate it, but it's generally cheaper than your RDP licenses and any of these other things that you're running. So very cost effective, very secure way of delivering your IT to your back end users. And so as we start to open up, and as Brad started out everything, a lot of people are saying, you know something, we don't need to have all this office space. And so maybe at some point in the next year when our leases are up, what we're going to do is scale back a little bit. So what's that mean? You're going to have a lot more remote users. So you're going to have to think, as my IT backbone, is it going to be able to support, securely support more remote users more of the time? And I think a lot of our clients anyway, and maybe some of you on the phone, you need to go back and look at how do we support them and make it cost effective, secure, and they have all the tools that they need. So Brad, we have a few takeaways because we're almost done. Whoops, I just dropped my phone. We have a few minutes left. What are the key takeaways from your perspective?
As Dale said, documenting the process, and as I've said, it's documenting the process. It's poking the holes in it right now of how it's working and not working. The efficiency and inefficiency of doing things on paper are becoming very apparent now that we actually can't do what we always did, and we have to pivot and evolve to that. It's not as simple as buying a technology. There's a lot that goes around it. And there are tools that can help, and there are better ways of doing things that we've always done, as Dale mentioned. And he's been a great resource to our firm, both as an employee, a funny guy, and just a technologically strong individual on just updating our systems. And thankfully, we updated a lot of our systems over the past probably 3 or 4 years since Dale's group, the Withum digital team, came aboard Withum. And it really helped prepare us and is allowing us to almost seamlessly handle what's going on right now, barring aside kids.
Yeah, except for the kid part. It doesn't, Withum or for Withum Digital, it hasn't been that much of a transition because a lot of us work remotely anyway, and we use these tools every day. But we get that it can be a transition. It can be an issue for people. I think. And in the interest of time, Brad, I think we have one trivia question, right?
Yep.
All right, what is it?
Where does one of Dale's daughters currently go to school, and he is abruptly leaving to go get her things right after this? Arizona.
The countdown clock is on. Countdown clock is on. I'm going to give everyone a huge hint. Wait, I'm going to wait 1 minute for the hint. You ready? That's a huge hint.
There you go. And it's not even on there.
Not there. I'm not sure you guys can see the hint, but there was a hint at the beginning.
Wait a minute. I thought Brad, we put it on there today.
It's not even on there. So take your best guess.
Take your best guess if they're allowed to. But here, I'll put the hat on.
With the way things are going, his kids are going to Withum University.
Yeah, you can say.
And as you know,
everybody's a winner today.
Everybody's a winner today. We will make everybody a winner today. And as you know, we're doing the new Navigating New Roads Learning Series. The winner at the end, we're holding 5 webinars in the month of May every Friday, and the winner ultimately will get a prize. So the more participation, the better. If you get them right, it bodes in your favor. And just wanted to say we really appreciate Dale. I appreciate your time, and I appreciate everybody's time in sitting on the webinar today and learning about process automation and adapting your business processes. So thanks so much.
I appreciate everyone participating as well. Thank you, Brad, for including me. I always have a good time. I actually prefer the live events, but we have fun doing those, and we'll be doing those at some point, and I hope in the next year.
Hopefully.
Oh, by the way, I'm going to Virginia.
He's going to Virginia.
That is the answer.
Yeah.
Not Virginia Tech.
Everybody.
Not Virginia Tech.
No. Thanks, everybody, for your time. Have a great day. Have a great weekend. Stay safe, be healthy, and be well.
Thanks, everybody. Bye now.